because,
Yeah, I don't think we can do that. We can
okay,
try.
okay.
Those online heroes?
Yes, thank you.
Steve Graham, Terrell Graham, Vic Hildebrand, Thomas Youngman, Russell Davis, Glenn Lord, Scooter Mangold,
Here.
Andrew McBride,
Here.
Daniel Meyer, Gary Middleton,
Here.
Travis Krusky,
Travis Kai chatted. He is present along with Charlie Platten.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Robert Puente,
Here.
Vanessa Pugh Williams,
Here.
Humberto Ramos,
Here.
Weldon Riggs, Roland Ruiz,
Here.
Daryl Brownlow,
Here.
Darren Simmons, Mitchell Sowards,
Here.
Jonathan Stinson,
Present.
Thomas Taggart,
Here.
Ryan Kelso,
Here.
Diane Wasenick,
Here.
Adam Yablonsky,
Here.
Dan Yoxel, Kelly Marty, Rusty Ray,
I'm in Marty Kelly's place. This is Carly Rodsler with Texas Parks and Wildlife.
thanks Carly, Rusty Ray, Ronald Fiesler, Ileana Delgado, Don McGee, Michelle Foss, Charles Wiedenfeld, Jamie McCool, Carl Kroll. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Hildebrand walked in while you were calling the roll.
I got him. Thank you.
And Glenn Lord, I don't know whether I was on mute when I answered or not, but I'm here.
Thanks, Glenn.
Charlie Platt.
Okay. Let's proceed to agenda item 2, public comment. Has anyone submitted a public comment form? Do you have any public comment? No? Any online? Anyone present online wishing to make a public comment? It's my understanding that we potentially have public comment offered by Concam Water Supply Service, someone representing. Anyone present to make public comment regarding that? Bill Grant?
I don't know about public comment, but I know what they're doing up there.
Okay. Well,
I think they're applying for a SWIFT grant or whatever. They're adding a well to their system. They had to haul water last year and the wells are kind of scattered out, and where their well was that worked the longest, they're adding another well to that and extending the pipeline up to their storage unit, so that they'll be able to put water in the storage unit and supply their customers at the same time, basically. And so that's what they're working on.
right, and I think my conversations with Norma Gale indicated that you may be familiar with this. In fact, she indicated you might report on it, that they, because that project was not within the state water plan, they would need to seek some form of support from Region L for their project to be considered for approval for SWIFT funding.
Yes, sir.
And I'll pass this on for the membership's benefit. My recommendation to Ms. Gale was that they determine which approach. They apparently have 2 approaches they can take, one of which would involve us amending the previous regional water plan, and then subsequently there being an amendment to the state water plan, or the second option being their application for funding to be amended to include what's called a consistency waiver. Is that the right term? Either approach, though, apparently, one approach obviously requires our approval with the modification or amendment of the plan. The second approach would require, at least for it to be considered favorably, would require this planning group to consider it and make recommendations or support for the request. So thank you for the comments, and we'll see what the Water Supply Corporation provides to us, and we will act accordingly. Perhaps have that on the next agenda, the next meeting.
Tim, this is Diane Wasenick.
Yes.
I could not hear when you said what the entity was that was commenting.
Concan Water Supply Corporation.
Thank you.
There's no other public comment to be offered. We'll move to agenda item 3. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Those minutes were within the package delivered to the planning group members in advance of the meeting. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? If there's no discussion, is there a motion to approve the drafted minutes for August 3rd, 2023? So, we have a motion and a second. We'll adopt this motion by consensus. Is there any opposition to the motion? There being none, we'll consider the motion passed. Move to agenda item 4, discussion appropriate action regarding filling existing vacancies and vacancies to result from future term expirations or resignations. You'll recall at our previous meeting, this planning group filled a number of vacancies and future vacancies by completing the nomination process and ultimately voting to seat those members on the planning group. In the interim, well, I should point out there was one future vacancy for industrial interest group that we did not receive a nomination for, the pending vacancy. My understanding, Mr. Lord has now informed the group that he does not intend to seek to be reappointed to that position, so that likely will be a vacancy. And we've also received indication from Mr. Lavis that he does not intend to continue to serve on the planning group following his, I guess, retirement from the groundwater conservation district. So we have some vacancies that we need to deal with. And I think ultimately what we need is be looking for authorization, a motion to authorize San Antonio River Authority to solicit nominations for those vacancies. Is there any discussion on the matter?
Not looking for the industrial category and a groundwater.
Water district. Water district. It's groundwater districts, not GMA, but groundwater district.
Well, I'll make the point that, Russell Lavis, general manager for the Evergreen District, hired officially, I guess at the end of last Friday at the meeting, and his replacement, Dr. Aaron T, sitting back here, has the intention if nominations are accepted, the Evergreen intends on nominating Dr. Aaron T to replace Russell Lavis in that GCD spot. Obviously, you'll have an application for consideration via recommendation for nomination. So I'll put, that's the Evergreen intention.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Would you talk to Glenn?
I have not personally talked to Glenn regarding his plans. I think Todd had a discussion.
Yeah, this is Glenn. I retire from Dow at the end of the year, so I don't consider myself to really represent industries at that point. And as a start, I'll make the motion to authorize the solicitation for replacements.
Good. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any opposition to the motion?
And as an aside, I am working to try and get someone from my organization to put an application in.
Good. Thank you. There's no additional discussion. We'll move to agenda item 5, discussion, consideration of action to authorize San Antonio River to negotiate and execute an amendment to the TWDB contract to increase the total project costs and committed funds for the 2026 regional water plan. That will be followed up by a companion item, agenda item 6. As I understand it, although I haven't fully investigated this, with passage of House Bill 1565, the TWDB Sunset Bill, there's additional funding available and being allocated to the regional water planning groups to complete the planning process. Apparently there's an emphasis on public outreach and maybe even rural public outreach. In order for this planning group to gain access to that additional funding that will be allotted to us, we have to go through a process whereby Sarah amends the agreement with TWDV, and then subsequently, under agenda item 6, we would need to consider and authorize the amendment of the contract between Sarah as our political subdivision representing Region L with our technical consultant, Black and Beach. Is there any discussion on that matter? Okay. There being none, is there a motion? So moved. Very good. We have a motion and a second to authorize Sarah to negotiate or complete contract amendment. Okay. Any opposition to that motion? There being none, we'll consider that motion passed by consensus. We'll move to agenda item 6, the companion item. We've already discussed it. Is there any additional discussion regarding the amendment of the contract between Sarah and Black and Beach? If there is none, is there a motion to authorize that amendment? So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition to the motion? Very good. There being none, we'll show that motion passed by consensus as well. With that, move to agenda item 7. Status reports and communications by Technical Water Development Board.
Good morning, everyone. Thank y'all for going through agenda items 6 and 7 really quickly. Would have rather had y'all at Region A. They did not approve to get their free money. They booted it to executive committee. That's this afternoon. So thank you very much for being here this morning. Everyone has been busy these last few months. We have quite a lot going on. As just discussed, we have the amended contracts going out. Actually, Sarah has received their contract from the board, authorizing the additional funds. And the projections for non-municipal and municipal water demands and population, those are going up for board approval next Thursday. Black and Beach will give you a little bit of a rundown. You got most of your wish list there. I'm pleased to present. There were a few things that we kind of came to a mutual agreement on for the time being. The contract, the increase in committed funds, as Tim mentioned, we had a request in with our sunset bill with this past legislative session, where the board acknowledges that as the regional water planning process is becoming more robust and we're asking more of the planning group for tasks that are being completed over the last few planning cycles. The funding was not there commensurate with the tasks that were being asked of the planning groups. So we asked the legislature for more money for the planning groups to complete this round of regional water planning, which they did approve funding. It's coming out in 2 batches. This first batch is for fiscal year 2024, which just began, going through next September. Your amount is $209,105 for the upcoming year in additional committed funding from the board. And then there's another amount that's approximately the same that will be coming for your consideration approximately this time next year. And that's an acknowledgement for some of the things going on with the, the population and, demands, public outreach. I'll go into a little bit more detail with that, probably at the next meeting. But, rural outreach is one of the tenets of some of this additional funding and some of the planning tasks for this cycle and continuing on. And it's not just, for municipal type outreach, it also, will include agricultural outreach, acknowledging that, there are a lot of regions that are agricultural in nature, and even this region, what's not developed or overdeveloped is agriculture. And so that's greatly needed. So, we've got, let's see, next slide, please. The regular, chair's call that they typically have approximately quarterly, was held, just about a month ago. The chairs received, kind of an overview of the contract amendments. They received, some information about the infeasible water management strategies task. They got an update on the interregional planning council activities. And they got an overview of the newly revamped database. And the next chair's call is going to be in January, date to be determined. The next interregional planning council meeting is on November 30th with a virtual option to attend. If you do have the opportunity, I do encourage you to listen in. They will be going over their draft report for policy recommendations for addressing concerns from the last planning cycle and this planning cycle and things moving forward. And lastly, we've got a new educational one-pager on planning for uncertainty in regional water planning, going into planning for above and beyond the drought record. And that's a short but good read. Any questions? Great, thank you.
Move to agenda item 8, staff reports of communication related to regional water planning, including reports from chair, regional liaisons, groundwater management area representatives, and members of the planning group. Let me begin with the chair's report. Other than the regional planning council update that you just received, we are working on this draft report, and I think it may be of interest to some of the membership as we discuss recommendations and observations that we may make within that report. So I'd echo the recommendation to join that meeting if you're so interested. I also wanted to point out to the membership back on August 17th, I believe an email was forwarded to you that we had received from Dr. Goswami with SSP&A, working on a project for Texas Water Development Board where they're attempting to develop a statewide database of pumping test information. So those of you who may be in possession of that sort of information, wish to share it, you can contact our Texas Water Development Board. In particular, I believe it's Dr. Hardwick with the groundwater modeling group. Want to submit any of that information to him for them to do so, and presumably benefits the state. That's all I have for chair's report. Are there any regional water planning group liaison reports? Liaisons which would like to make a report? Provide your report on Region P. Region P met on October 23rd. They're doing essentially, or they're taking on the same sort of task we are as a regional planning group. At their meeting, they dealt with infeasible the considerations that planning groups are required to take or make regarding infeasible water management strategies. While there was some discussion, but at the end of it, it looks as though they took action to not identify any infeasible water management strategy within their plan, which, had they done so, could have potentially affected this region or other regions. That's the update regarding that matter. I think they also, I know they did, they had some discussion regarding assumptions and potentially variance requests to be made regarding certain modeling. I believe at the end of that, they decided not to make any variance requests. I think it's a topic we have on our agenda. That's all I have to report regarding Region P. Are there any other liaisons that'd like to make a report? Okay, are there any groundwater management area representatives who'd like to provide a report to this group?
Make a report. I'm
Yes, sir.
Michael Walgaris with the GMA 9 Joint Planning Committee. I'm sitting in for Kurt, but I'm the chairman of that committee. So we have a meeting coming up in November. We've been meeting every 2 months. We're in the process of selecting a consultant right now. Kind of went through that whole process again. I don't know how much Kurt's updated you on that, but we're waiting on Water Development Board's update to the Southern Trinity model, and hopefully all that will coincide in time to get some new model runs done. And we're almost guaranteed to have some new PFCs and mags for this next round of planning. So.
Thank you for that. I'll provide you a report regarding GMA 15. Similar in terms of our stage or our position within the planning cycle. We've identified Intera as our preferred respondent to our RFP for a technical consultant. We expect to have them under contract by January, at which we'll have our next GMA 15 meeting. And we'll see where we go from there. We too are waiting on some information from Texas Water Development Board to inform the process. In particular, a report from the Texas Water Development Board that will compare the DFC modeling scenario or model run from the new Gulf Coast Aquifer groundwater availability model to the previous Central Gulf Coast Aquifer groundwater model. We look forward to seeing that, see if we can understand how the new model changes or improves the modeling capability that we use. Any other reports? Yes, sir.
I might report GMA 13, the Central Texas regional model is being scrutinized pretty carefully, tied to some problematic transmissivities identified within the model. And Intera had reached out to the Evergreen District to fund some research to diagnose and assess some pretty dramatic differences between what the Bill Hutchison and his group, Water Development, have seen versus what Intera would use. And so the Evergreen is evaluating this proposal to do a pretty intensive study because the nature of the transmissivities identified in the GMA model are pretty high, which has a direct effect on DFCs. And so there's a great deal of concern on behalf of certainly the Evergreen users in that region. So that's an ongoing process. Same entity that you mentioned is looking at that. And the Evergreen is probably going to fund that project. So hopefully we'll have some mechanism to evaluate the performance of the current model in terms of its impact on availability and consequent DFCs.
Very good, thank you for the report. Any members wishing to make a report to this group? Okay, there being none, we'll move to agenda item 9, presentation by technical consultant regarding schedule and progress updates.
Make sure you see it. Good morning, my name is Lauren Gonzalez, and I'm with Black Beach. And we have a few members of our team here today, including Jamie Burke. We also have Christine Westerman with SWCA, and we have Richard Hoffpower on the line virtually. We'll start off with a presentation of the schedule. This is the 5-year overall schedule that shows all the different tasks and deadlines that we have. We're here in the fourth quarter of 2023, and as you can see, we have a lot of overlapping tasks that we're currently involved with, and we're working towards this deadline of the technical memorandum that's due on March 4th, 2024. Zooming into the 2023 anticipated schedule, again, we are here, November, fourth quarter, and we have several tasks that are ongoing, including task 1, the planning area description, task 3, water availability and supply analysis, task 4A, identification of water needs, task 4B, identification of infeasible water management strategies, and several others. At this meeting today, the 3 topics that we'll be discussing are the hydrologic variances, which is task 3, the process and analysis of infeasible water management strategies, which is task 4B, and the process for identifying potentially feasible water management strategies, which is 5A. Since we're at the end of 2023, we thought we'd go ahead and look at the schedule for next year. So this is the zoomed-in schedule for the 2024, and we're looking at several, this is where things really start ramping up with regional water planning, so lots of ongoing simultaneous tasks. And at our February meeting, we're planning to present topics on the scope of work for task 5B approval. This is the water management strategies, and then also present and approve the technical memorandum, which is task 4C. Are there any questions on the schedule so far? Hearing none, moving on to an update on our completed efforts so far. So, as Michelle mentioned, we completed a memorandum to the Texas Water Development Board regarding requests for population and municipal water demand projections. And the Texas Water Development Board reviewed and provided responses and recommendations to us on their approval of the various requests that we had made. The Texas Water Development Board plans to consider and approve the population water demands for all regional water planning groups at the November 9th board meeting. And we'll include some additional information on subsequent slides. We've also completed review of the hydrologic assumptions and variances for this cycle, task 3, and we'll present more information on that in an agenda item later. We've completed review of the 2021 planned water management strategies to determine if any may be infeasible, and we'll include more information on that later. And also completed development of the process to identify potentially feasible water management strategies. And we'll present more information on that in later slides.
Update on ongoing, oh,
Sorry, quick question.
yes, ma'am.
I was just, as you were talking about the timeline, I was thinking back to some of the comments on the DOCs and MAGs, and if those change, how does that get factored into the schedule we have for regional water rights?
If they change,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Jamie?
I think the process is such that we've already got our numbers for this cycle, and then these developed numbers will really be for next.
For the next cycle.
Okay, thank you. Update on ongoing efforts. We are continuing review of water supplies and water management strategy outreach. We're planning to send a survey out to water user groups, soliciting feedback on existing water supplies, and then also requesting feedback on water management strategies. And so we'll continue engaging water user groups beyond that. So many of you will be recipients of this survey. It is a bit involved. I think for some water user groups that have a lot of customers, we may just reach out to you all individually to try to get this information because it can be a little bit of a bear sometimes in a formulated survey response format. We are going to continue development of the technical memorandum, Task Force C, and we'll present this to you all at the February meeting next year. We're also going to begin development of the scope of work for the potential water management strategy evaluations, and we'll also present that to you all for approval at the February meeting. We are also, of course, continuing interregional coordination with Region K to our north, and also Regions G, N, and P. Are there any questions on the completed or ongoing efforts before we move on? Hearing none. This is a summary of the feedback that we received from the Texas Water Development Board regarding our requests for population and municipal water demands. We received feedback from them that included a recommendation of our revisions that were proposed for all of these water user groups that are listed here in the first and the second and part of the third columns. And then Texas Water Development Board recommended modifications to our revisions for these 8 WUGs that are included in the bottom right-hand corner. We went ahead and created this graphic to demonstrate what was proposed by the Texas Water Development Board, shown here in green, and then what we requested in dark blue, the dashed line, and then what the Texas Water Development Board ultimately recommended. As you can see, this is for population in particular. So we have population on the y-axis. And as you can see, the dark blue line of what we requested and what the Texas Water Development Board ultimately recommended are very similar. We got most of what we requested, and they accepted 99.6% of the overall population count that we requested. We also asked for revisions to gallons per capita daily, and the Texas Water Development Board recommended revisions for these 4 water user groups, and then they recommended modifications to our revisions for these 4 water user groups, and then the Texas Water Development Board did not recommend revisions proposed for Maxwell Sud. We also created a similar graphic for the municipal water demand revisions. We have the acre feet per year on the y-axis, and in green is the originally proposed projections by Texas Water Development Board. In the dark blue is what we had requested from the board, and orange is what the board ultimately recommended. And as you can see, what we requested and what the board recommended are very, very similar. So they accepted 99.4% of the overall water demand requested by us. Are there any questions on that? Yes, sir.
I've got a question. Laura, with regards to Concan Water Supply Corporation, do you know if they're going to be submitting request for revisions?
Do I know?
Concan Water Supply Corporation?
Yes, sir.
Are they going to be submitting revisions to populations? Do you know anything about that?
We coordinated with them, and I believe that they looked at the population and water demand revisions and said that they look fine.
I think we ended up, they agreed to the 0.5 migration scenario for that county and that for
County's allocated, is it Valley County.
Any other questions before we move on?
I've got a question. This goes back to one of the previous questions I believe Ms. Williams asked regarding potential changes to the MAG or DSEs. And there was a comment, I guess, you made that all of those numbers are finalized in terms of the 2026 water plan. Was that the reference you made?
So, yes, so usually the timing is such, I mean, I guess if some weren't developed, next month.
Well, the population and demand projections, once they are approved by the board, those are the values that would be included in the plan. Now, with regards to the DFCs and MAGs, the technical memorandum is kind of a halfway point document where it's a technical status report, mid-planning cycle. If you have changes that you can incorporate up to your IPP, your initially prepared plan, then that data would be incorporated. There's been the initially prepared.
What is the
plan.
schedule of the initially prepared plan?
It's due March 4th, 2025, I think, yes.
That's what I'm trying to rectify. Obviously, as it relates to what I was discussing earlier from GMA 13 and the reanalysis of the Carrizo, Central Carrizo model, and the expenditure of funds and research that the Evergreen and some of the other districts brought up in regards to the DFCs and the drawdowns of the model itself, what it was presenting. I guess when I heard that a while ago, I was assuming then that if we did any changes, then it wouldn't apply till the 2031 water plan, if we can't get those changes. Now, making the presumption that there may be some modifications as a result of our intensive research and negotiating with the existing model that Bill Hutchins is working. So you're saying that for an entity to pursue potential changes to the GMA, to the MAG and DFCs associated, for example, with the Carrizo, that there is time, there appears to be time for those changes to take effect, as long as they're in before the initially prepared plan.
Right,
Okay,
and I would say.
I just wanted that clarification.
Give yourself probably a review of or a buffer.
Right.
Once you get the data, so you can take a look at, what potential water management strategies.
Because that'll drive some of the interest by the GMA 13 and others that have some issues. Okay, thank you
Just
for the
to-
clarification.
If we were to have an opinion on it as the technical consultants, we would prefer to use the MAG numbers that have already been approved, because right now is when we're evaluating existing water supplies, and then we're going to be evaluating needs based on those supplies.
Obviously, that's an easier thing.
Well, the timeline, as you saw from that schedule, we have a lot of tasks simultaneously that we're going to be looking at. So we would just want to be very mindful of all of that as we move forward. with this.
What you're saying is you don't like changes.
No, sir. That's not good, sir.
I mean, to that end, I guess my question is, does that change scope or cost for Black and Beach, or it's plug and play, you'll get the new data from whatever the model is, and you just dump it in?
It would be significantly more effort from us. Yeah,
In
because
terms,
we
I mean,
in money. Right.
I think we would want to know what fiscal impact that looks like, and what won't be done if we're going to do that.
Moving on to agenda item 10, this is the infeasible water management strategy evaluation results. This is a flow diagram that demonstrates the process for reviewing infeasible water management strategies. So the RWPGs must conduct an analysis of infeasible water management strategies and then present the results of the analysis at a public meeting, which is right now today. And then if there are any infeasible water management strategies, then, well, the RWPG approves the evaluation results and includes it in the technical memorandum in February. And then if there are any infeasible water management strategies identified, then the Regional Water Planning Group must proceed with an amendment process or modifications to the previous plan. And the whole task objective of this is to look backward at the 2021 Regional Water Plan and identify whether or not those water management strategies are considered newly infeasible since the time that they were recommended in the previous Regional Water Plan. But have since become infeasible and must be modified or amended out of the plan. And so the definition of infeasible is whether or not the proposed sponsor of a water management strategy has not taken an affirmative vote or other action to make expenditures necessary, such as filing applications for permits, and on a schedule that is consistent with the completion of implementation of the water management strategy. And so an affirmative vote or affirmative action may include spending money on the strategy or project, voting to spend money on the strategy or project, or applying for federal or state permits for the strategy or project. And so the applicable strategies that were reviewed were strategies and projects with an online decade of 2020 in the 2021 Regional Water Plan. And then an optional review was to also look at near-term strategies in the 2030 and 2040 decades that have lengthy permitting or construction processes. There is a handout in your agenda packet that includes all of those applicable strategies, by the way. It's handout A. And so we evaluated all of those strategies, and for certain strategies, it was assumed that they would be feasible, such as conservation and drought management. And then we identified 25 strategies that involved significant permitting and lengthy construction processes. And so for those 25 strategies, we reached out to project sponsors via email and by phone to receive updates on the project status. And we asked questions like, was this project implemented and online by January 5th, 2023? If not, when do you expect the project to be online? And then have you taken any affirmative actions toward implementation, like spending money or voting to spend money or getting a permit? And based on feedback from the Texas Water Development Board and guidance from them, they said that a good faith effort by the consultant to establish feasibility is still considered as feasible. And so, as I mentioned, we reached out to 25, for these 25 projects. There are two slides here, slide 1 and 2. And we have a list of the sponsor, and then the water management strategy or project, and whether or not we received responses from each. And we received an overwhelmingly good response from most water user groups. We only did not receive responses from Atascosa Rural WSC, El Oso WSC, and the City of Victoria. And so the evaluation results is that we established feasibility for all of these projects from the evaluation. So therefore, no projects were determined to be infeasible, and no associated amendment process is necessary. Are there any questions on the evaluation results? So in accordance with rule and statute, we must accept public comment regarding feasible water management strategy evaluation results.
Is there any call for public comment regarding water management strategy evaluation results?
Yeah, hi. My name is Ted Boriak. I would like to make a public comment.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm a landowner out of Gonzales County, and I don't work for a groundwater district or do modeling for groundwater districts or, I'm just a landowner who's watching this progress and doing the best I can to work with a local groundwater district in in Gonzales. And I spoke previously on the I believe it was August 2nd, Region L meeting. And I want to raise concern about the massive pumping of groundwater out from Gonzales County and then the transport of that groundwater to cities where much of the groundwater is lost, broken pipes, it's being wasted. And when you look at the pumping of the groundwater and the allocation on an acreage basis, there is a massive taking of groundwater from property owners and landowners who are not being compensated and who have opposed many of these groundwater projects. And from what I've seen, it appears that the pumping of the water and the modeled available groundwater volumes are substantially greater than the recharge rates, which means that the water is effectively being mined and it's not coming back. And so this modeled available groundwater or the permitted numbers involve only a very small percentage of the acreage in the county or in the groundwater district. And so there's a massive transfer of property that's occurring in the transfer of groundwater from landowners who depend on this water for their farms and their ranches. And this water is being taken. They are not being paid for it. So I would say that this plan is really not feasible. It doesn't properly take into account property rights. From what I can see from the pumping rates and the way that they're concentrated in some areas of the county and not actually spread out across the county as they are treated, results in local impacts, which impact some properties significantly greater than others. And some of those properties are not being compensated. And so I raise major objection to this plan. And I think it's not been thought through with regard to local impacts, the impacts on agriculture, the impacts on property right, and the long-term sustainability. And so money is being invested into groundwater projects, which in my view are really not sustainable. So it's a misallocation of capital. There needs to be done more on conservation, and the property rights need to be respected. So there's huge impact that's going to come from all of this. But I don't think it's been fully considered when it comes to what's really going to happen in some of these high pumping areas. And there's no monitoring plan for subsidence set in place. And where is the detailed modeling to look at the local impacts? It's not done by the Water Development Board, and it's not being done by the Gonzales Groundwater District either. And so I think this plan needs a major overhaul. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments to be offered? With that, we'll conclude the public comment period for agenda item 10. You need any action regarding this matter?
No, sir. Moving on to the, sorry.
Well, that's fine. Is there any additional discussion regarding feasible water management strategies, the analysis, et cetera? There being none, let's proceed.
The next agenda item is the process for identifying potentially feasible water management strategies in this plan. And so task 5A includes the identification of potentially feasible water management strategies for all water user groups with identified water needs. And the process for identification of potentially feasible water management strategies must be presented for consideration and approval at a regularly scheduled regional water planning group, which is this meeting right here. The planning group must accept public comment And the evaluation results must occur at a meeting in which the feasible strategies are also presented. The process must be documented also in the technical memorandum. And so this is the proposed process to identify potentially feasible water management strategies, and I'll go through each one of these steps. So the first is to look at water management strategies from the 2021 plan, review, consider whether or not to carry them forward in the 2026 plan. The second is to solicit information from water user groups and wholesale water providers within Region L, including rural entities. The third is to take that information that we receive, this will be initiated in the fourth quarter, to determine whether the project sponsor wishes to include the water management strategies in the 2026 plan. The solicitation will also request whether there are additional water management strategies desired for inclusion in the 2026 plan. And then in accordance with rule and statute, the planning group must consider certain types of water management strategies for all identified water needs. The sixth step is that information gathered from that solicitation and input from WUMS and wholesale water providers will be considered during development of a list of potentially feasible water management strategies. This list will be prepared and presented to the planning group at a regularly scheduled meeting, which would be at the first quarter meeting in February this next year. Additional water management strategies may be brought forward to the planning group for consideration and inclusion by the second quarter 2024 meeting, which is usually in May. And then the list of potentially feasible water management strategies will be further considered to identify whether or not they are, quote, potentially feasible or, quote, not potentially feasible for water user groups and wholesale water providers with identified water needs. And then the last step is that the planning group will reference and follow the planning group's bylaws and guiding principles, specifically Guiding Principle 7 regarding minimum standards for water management strategies, 8 regarding designation of recommended and alternative strategies, and 9 regarding establishment of management supply. And I've gone ahead for your reference and included 3 slides that show the guiding principles for those 3 guiding principles. It is 7, 8, and 9. Are there any questions on that? On the process for identifying potentially feasible water management strategies? It's more or less very similar to the previous cycles process with updates.
We busy?
Yes, sir.
I believe we need to take public comment on plan, this procedure.
Yes, sir.
This time we'll accept public comment regarding plan for evaluating potentially feasible water management strategies. Is there any public comment offered?
Yeah, Ted Boriak here again. I would just reiterate the comments that I previously made and ask that they be considered here as well. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just have a question, or maybe kind of like a restatement, or trying to understand a little bit more about what Ted expressed. It seems that, he's saying that given the issues that he's seeing in Gonzales County and the impact to groundwater levels, that to him means that any water management strategies based on groundwater out there might potentially be infeasible. But that's not really how it sounds like infeasible is defined under the statute.
Correct.
I recognize that he's sharing with us, challenges that a lot of other landowners are dealing with across the state as well. But it seems like that's really an issue more for, at least now, the way the current framework is set up, that's really an issue for the groundwater districts to address.
I would agree with that. Any other comments, discussion?
I have a question. When you're evaluating feasible versus infeasible, is it limited, is it throughout Regional? This is a strategy that could be applicable anywhere in Regional, or is it more narrow, saying, you know, this is a strategy that's feasible in this area, but it's not feasible in a different area?
Right, it's for each water user group.
Thank you.
With an identified need.
Got it.
I just have one question. If in your review of the infeasible water strategies, if there was no response received from the entity that had the infeasible water strategy, it is considered feasible.
If there was, that's very close. If there was a water management strategy included, if not an infeasible strategy, if there was a water management strategy included in the previous plan and we did not receive a response, then a good faith effort would have been made. Then therefore it could be considered feasible.
So no response means it's feasible.
Yes, sir.
For this planning cycle.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That was the board's guidance for this planning cycle. This is the first cycle that task has been done.
So hypothetically, if you had reached out to everybody on these 25 projects and nobody responded to anything, then it was considered, they're all feasible.
Yes, sir, hypothetically. But again, we received
Oh, I understand that. I was just
responses from nearly everyone.
wondering why anybody bothered to respond if it was going to be considered feasible anyway. But I don't want to confuse.
Any other comment to be made? Okay. There being none, we'll proceed through the agenda. Agenda item 12, discussion appropriate action regarding process for identifying. You said you're trying to feel very redundant.
I know, it's very confusing.
Confusing myself. Agenda item 12, discussion appropriate action regarding the process for identifying potentially feasible water management strategies.
Yes, sir. So the recommendation is to consider action to approve the process for identifying potentially feasible water management strategies.
Is there a motion to approve the process for identifying potentially feasible water management strategies for the upcoming plan? So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay. There being none, we'll consider that motion passed by consensus. Let's move to agenda item 13. Again, discussion, consideration of action regarding water availability, existing water supplies, and potential needs for preparation and submittal of a hydraulic variance request to TWDB.
Yes, sir. So task 3 requires us to look at the existing water supplies in our region. And we must determine water availability from reservoirs and from rivers. And the Texas Water Development Board requires regional water planning groups to determine the surface water availability based on a publicly available model that evaluates that availability, and it's available from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. And this is considered it's called a water availability model, or WAM. And so the unmodified WAM Run 3 from the TCEQ assumes all water rights use their full authorized amount, that all applicable permit conditions such as flow requirements are met, and assumes no return flows. And so the WAMs are available on the TCEQ's website. The primary WAMs that we will use are the Guadalupe San Antonio River Basin WAM, which was last updated in September of this year, so just last month. And then the Nueces River Basin WAM, which was also updated just last month. And we also include the period of records for each of those. And so,
I'm sorry, what was updated on the WAM last month?
so the WAM was updated last month.
The GSA was?
Yes, sir.
They went ahead and did it?
Yes, sir. Well, they haven't extended the
Oh,
flow, yeah,
okay, it's still 3 now.
yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
But it has been updated
Getting really
with,
excited all of a sudden.
it's been updated with recent water rights, issued water rights.
Thank you, sorry.
The last time it was updated was in 2014.
Is it available?
It's available on the TCP website, yes, sir.
But what they didn't update was that period of record, which alleged it passed, but they
Right.
thought.
Yeah, it would be relevant, it needed to have been done.
Right, because the period of record for the GSA goes through 1989. So, just a few definitions before we move on. Firm diversion is the run-of-river availability, and so this is evaluated for municipal sole source water use, defined as a minimum monthly diversion amount that's available 100% of the time during a repeat of the drought record. And then for all other water users, the firm diversion is defined as the minimum annual diversion, which is the lowest annual summation of the monthly diversions reported by the WAM over the simulation period. And then firm yield is for reservoir availability, and this is the maximum water volume the reservoir can provide each year under a repeat of the drought of record. This also assumes sedimentation rates, assumes senior water rights will be totally utilized, and all applicable permit conditions are met. So we looked at the last cycle's hydrologic assumptions and have summarized them here. So for the Guadalupe San Antonio River Basin WAM, or River Basin, we used in the previous plan, we used the most recent unmodified WAM 1-3, which again was dated in 2014, to determine the water availabilities, water management strategies, and cumulative effects. So those three categories are key here. And then for the firm yield for existing supplies, we used the Region L WAM, and that's in quotation marks, for Canyon Reservoir, Coleto Creek, Calaveras, and Ronde. And the Region L WAM is a water availability model with a lot of extra code in it that uses a daily time step simulation with no use of effluent or other changes to water rights. And the regional WAM more accurately considers reservoir operations in its analysis, including operation of the power plant reservoirs, subject to authorized consumptive uses, with makeup diversions as needed to maintain full conservation storage to the extent possible, subject to senior water rights, in-stream flow considerations, and/or applicable contractual provisions. In short, the regional WAM more accurately estimates the firm yield for these 4 reservoirs. And so we also included in the Guadalupe San Antonio River Basin, another assumption was to include return flows in WAM Run 3 for water management strategies if the sponsor requested a project that included a bed and banks permit. So this is in terms of the role of reuse within the regional water plan. It is only for water management strategies. So not existing supplies, and only with the cumulative effects if there's a water management strategy that includes reuse. And so this is the same that we did last cycle. We did it for the Siesta project. And then for the Nueces River Basin, we again used the most recent unmodified WAM Run 3. For the Nueces Basin, that was dated 2013. And then for the cumulative effects analysis, we used a safe yield for Choke Canyon Reservoir to incorporate an agreement between TCEQ and City of Corpus Christi. And again, included return flows in WAM Run 3 for water management strategies that the sponsor requested a project that included a bed and banks permit. In our case, there were no water management strategies in the last cycle for the Nueces Basin, but it was still an assumption that we used. And so for this cycle, our plan is to use the same assumptions as last cycle for the Guadalupe San Antonio Basin. And for the Nueces River Basin, our plan is to use the same assumptions as last cycle with the exception of the use of the safe yield for Corpus Christi, because the latest WAM that was just issued last month already includes the agreement between Corpus Christi and the TCEQ in it, so it's not necessary for us to modify the WAM for the cumulative effects analysis. So moving forward, we just use an unmodified WAM Run 3. And so with all of these considerations, there would be, these are the assumptions for the 2026 Regional Water Plan. We would use the unmodified WAM 1-3 for surface water rights. The WAMs anticipated to be used are Guadalupe, San Antonio, and the Oasis Basin WAMs, and then also use of the regional WAM for operation of Canyon Lake and the power plant reservoirs. And taking that into consideration, this is a summary of the variance requests that we would hopefully make from the Texas Water Development Board, which is use of the regional WAM, and then use of a tool called the flow regime application tool, which basically takes the monthly time step, converts it to daily time step, and then evaluates the water management strategies with respect to environmental flows. And this is just for the new water management strategies. And then we would also, again, include return flows in the WAM for water management strategies if a sponsor requests a project that includes a bed and banks permit. And we would include that from the Oasis Basin as well. Are there any questions on all of this? If not, we would recommend that you consider action to approve the surface water hydrologic assumptions, including a hydrologic variance request for the 2026 Regional Water Plan. And I need to mention one more thing. Your handout B includes a draft transmittal letter and surface water hydrologic variance request checklist for submittal to the Texas Water Development Board. And I will pull it up here. This checklist is what we would submit to the Texas Water Development Board. It's in accordance with their checklist that was issued in August of 2022. And so specifically for the Guadalupe San Antonio Basin, we have received a comment from SAWS with a requested revision to this highlighted text right here. The original text says that the regional WAM, this is the same model approved by the Texas Water Development Board and used in previous Region L regional water plans. Instead of saying used in previous regional water plans, instead it would say used in the current 2021 regional water plan. Yes,
we don't have a copy of that.
it should be in the agenda packet or.
Turns out A and B are in the center. Do you want me to hand them out to you?
Yes, if you could hand them that, just so we can see.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Can I have further explanation on the previous slide, when you talked about we include return flows in the WAM for water management strategy if a sponsor requests a project that includes a bed and banks permit.
Yes, sir.
Further explain that a little bit.
I have it, yeah.
Whose return flows or what return flows are you addressing here?
Sure.
The applicant that's making the request for the permit?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part?
Go ahead, whose return flows are we talking about?
Right. So usually in the case of, say, the Siesta project, Canyon Regional Water Authority has a project that would use return flows from a number of wastewater treatment facilities. They actually have an agreement, I believe, with the San Antonio River Authority. Is that correct?
Thank you.
For return flows. And so there would be a bed and banks permit that would be requested from, or applied for by the TCEQ that would request the bed and banks, a bed and banks permit that would request that those return flows, subject to any carriage losses and so forth. And so in the case of Siesta, if they requested, let's just say 10,000 acre feet, that's not what it is, but I'm just gonna throw in a round number. If they requested a water management strategy that would result in a firm yield of 10,000 acre feet per year, we would most likely need to put that into the WAM and then model that to make sure that the water management strategy can actually provide that firm yield. We have to double check and evaluate that it can actually provide that amount.
Okay.
So in the case of that one, it's from Sarah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And another thing is, this is in accordance with the guiding principle number 10, I believe, regarding the role of reuse. And if you go to the very last slide in our agenda packet, and I can scroll there, I've gone ahead and I've included the text from the guiding principle regarding the role of reuse within the regional water plan. And that includes that effluent would be depicted in the regional water plan in cases of direct and indirect reuse water management strategies. So for existing water supplies, it's not included. But for water management strategies, it would. For cumulative effects, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other discussion regarding this matter? There's none. Is anyone prepared to make the motions presented on the screen? If you don't, we won't have a hydrologic.
I move to approve the action list.
Two recommendations. Okay, very fine. Is there a second to that? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion regarding that?
Would we want to vote to include the language from SOS? Is that assumed?
Amend your motion.
That's, with the suggested changes that was sent to you and to the group, I saw.
Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, we'll show the motion passed by consensus. Thank you.
And that's all I have for today.
Very good. We'll move to agenda item 14, discussion and appropriate action regarding the establishment of additional subcommittees. I'm aware of no members making a request or being interested in establishing subcommittees. Is there any discussion regarding that matter at this time? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 15, scheduled 2024 Regional Water Planning Group meetings for this region. So on the screen in front of you, you have a proposed meeting schedule for 2024. Please note February 14th. The proposed date is not our regular schedule. I believe that's a Wednesday. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a date has been pushed back to afford the technical consultants additional time to prepare for that meeting and develop the deliverables, correct?
Yes,
The tech memo in particular, right?
Yes,
And then the following meetings, May 2nd, August 1st, and November 7th, fall on the first Thursday of those months, which is our regular schedule. Is there a motion to approve those meeting dates?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Is there any opposition to the motion? There being none, we'll show the motion passed by consensus. We'll move to agenda item 16, schedule and potential agenda items for the next regional water planning meeting. Again, February 14th, excuse me. 9:30, presumably same group. Okay. Any discussion regarding that meeting, its agenda, etc. If you would review the agenda, excuse me, the previous year and any of those administrative items carrying over, please. Any other discussion regarding that? Okay, there being none, we'll move to agenda item 17, public comment. Is there anyone at this time that would like to offer public comment to the planning group?
Yeah, this is Ted Boriak again, landowner out of Gonzales County. And I just wanted to reiterate the importance of taking a very hard look at the groundwater pumping. There are areas where it's concentrated, it's impacting some farms and ranches in a very disproportionate way relative to the other properties and land in Gonzales County. And so it's really not fair and equitable for a farm to have a 2,000 GPM well pumping for many years to come adjacent to his property with a drawdown zone that is shown by their own groundwater modeling. And this farm is not getting compensated for the water that's being taken. And from what I've seen so far, there's a lot of study that really needs to be done to ensure that this groundwater pumping is not going to cause local impacts on the aquifer and on the landowners that are adjacent to those wells within these big drawdown zones. So I would encourage the planning group to really take a hard look at that, because what's happening is it's really not fair. It's not fair. It's a massive taking of water with huge impact on agriculture. And once this damage is done, it won't be, you can't fix it. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment at this time? Okay, there being none, we'll move to adjournment. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.